The sun begins its slow climb over the Maasai Mara, spilling liquid gold across the endless sea of grass. At first glance, it feels like peace, a rare, quiet morning stretched over the savannah like a warm blanket. The breeze stirs gently, teasing the tall blades of grass into a rhythmic sway, and for a fleeting moment, the world feels calm, almost too calm.
But beneath this golden tranquility lies a network as complex as any human intelligence agency, a covert alliance born not of trust, but of necessity. The Prey Animals Underground Network, a living web of whispers and warning signals, stitched together by fear and sharpened by evolution. Grazing in scattered clusters, the impalas keep their heads low, their nostrils twitching at every stray scent the wind delivers. Nearby, a row of zebra flicks their ears like tiny satellite dishes, rotating, tilting, capturing every note of the savannah's restless orchestra. Wildebeest, those shaggy nomads, grunt softly as they shuffle along the horizon, their voices rolling like distant thunder. To the casual eye, these animals seem disconnected, each lost in its private routine of survival. But watch closely, and the illusion crumbles. This is not chaos, it's choreography. Unseen threads bind these species together in an intricate ballet of survival, a symphony where every flick of a tail, every startled snort, is a coded message broadcasted across the plains. It begins with the impalas. Famed for their agility, these slender antelope are not merely fleet of foot, they are sentinels disguised as grazers. When an impala senses trouble, it doesn't simply bolt in blind panic. Instead, it sends a ripple through the herd, a twitching tail here, a sharp cough-like snort there. These signals are alarm beacons, a flashing red light in the language of prey. But the brilliance lies in how these messages transcend species barriers. Zebras grazing nearby are fluent in impala. A single twitch sets off a chain reaction, turning heads, pricking ears, raising the tension in the air like static before a storm. The zebras themselves are no passive listeners in this network. They are in many ways the broadcasters of the savannah, loud, visible, and unmissable. Their eyesight, honed to piercing sharpness, scans the horizon for the faintest silhouette of danger. Unlike impalas, zebras rely less on scent and more on sight, their striped camouflage fooling predators at distance, while their sharp vision works overtime. When a zebra sounds the alarm, it's unmistakable. A high-pitched barking bray carrying over the grasslands like a siren. Wildebeest, with their notoriously poor eyesight, tune in immediately, as if the zebra's broadcast cuts through the fog of their senses, snapping them to attention. And so the system functions. Prey animals, each with their own strengths and weaknesses, forming an interspecies surveillance grid. Impalas read the wind like seasoned meteorologists. Zebras scan the horizon with telescopic clarity, and wildebeest, while often the butt of nature's jokes for their clumsy looks, lend their own contribution with seismic sensitivity to ground vibrations. Together, they weave a net so tight that even the stealthiest predator struggles to slip through unnoticed. But what elevates this network beyond mere reaction is its strategy. Prey animals are not only warning each other of danger, they are shaping the very tactics of the hunt itself. Studies have shown that wildebeest will sometimes fake movements, creating the illusion of vulnerability to probe for predator reactions. Impalas, too, are known to perform exaggerated stotting leaps, not out of panic, but as a deliberate signal of fitness, warning predators that pursuit is futile. It's a psychological chess match, played across miles of open terrain, with lives hanging in the balance at every move. More fascinating still is the notion of selective signaling. Not every alarm is broadcasted at full volume. Prey animals, especially when young are around, modulate their alerts to avoid drawing excessive attention. A subtle ear flick may suffice for nearby herd members, while a full-throated call is reserved for imminent danger. It's as if they possess an internal dial, adjusting the intensity of their communication with the precision of seasoned tacticians. Of course, predators are not deaf to these signals. Lions and cheetahs have become eavesdroppers on this open channel, attuned to the alerts not as warnings but as coordinates, roadmaps to potential kills. Therein lies the paradox of the prey network. The very system designed to protect them also becomes their most dangerous vulnerability. Yet, evolution has not left the prey defenseless in this regard. Herds sometimes deploy false alarms, scattering prematurely to test a predator's patience, or clustering so tightly that the predator loses its advantage in the confusion of motion.
Perhaps the most astonishing spectacle unfolds during the Great Migration, when thousands of wildebeest, zebras, and antelope surge across the Mara in colossal herds. Here, the spy network swells to unimaginable proportions, creating a living wave of communication that flows like liquid life across the landscape. Signals pass from one end of the herd to the other in mere moments, a phenomenon so seamless it appears choreographed. Predators circle the edges, calculating, second-guessing, wary of the invisible eyes that watch them from every angle. Yet for all its brilliance, the network is not infallible. Moments of chaos, a sudden gust of wind carrying away a crucial scent trail, a juvenile failing to understand a subtle signal, can fracture the web. When that happens, when confusion overruns order, predators strike with brutal efficiency. But even in these moments of collapse, the system learns. Lessons are absorbed into the instincts of the survivors, encoded in muscle memory, and passed on like folklore through generations. As the sun climbs higher, burning away the morning mist, the network hums with renewed urgency. Predators are stirring, hunger sharpening their senses, eyes narrowing at the swirling herds. But the prey are ready. They stand not as isolated targets, but as a living tapestry of vigilance, woven tighter than ever. Every breath of wind, every flutter of a bird, every shadow crossing the sunlit grass is observed, analyzed, and shared across invisible lines of communication. The Mara, for all its brutality, is a land of whispers, and in those whispers lies the balance between life and death. And just as the herd seems to relax, lulled by their own vigilance, a new shadow slips across the horizon. The silent assassins of the savannah are on the move. The network has been watching, but so have the predators, patiently decoding the signals, waiting for their moment to strike. And when they do, they will aim not for the fastest or the strongest, but for the gaps in the network itself. The dance continues. As the sun reaches its merciless zenith, the savannah exhales a breath so heavy with heat, it seems to shimmer in place. Waves of golden haze ripple across the parched grasses, distorting the horizon as if the very air is melting under the weight of midday. Beneath this furnace sky, shadows crawl longer, seeking refuge beneath acacia trees that offer thin, brittle shade. It is a moment when most of the Mara's noble hunters retreat to lethargic slumbers, bellies full or empty alike, conserving energy for the coolness of dusk. But for the scavenger syndicate, the underworld of the savannah, this is their prime hour. When kings rest, the mafia rises. Here, in the underbelly of the ecosystem, a secret society operates with ruthless precision. Forget the grandeur of the lion's hunt or the cheetah's chase. This is not about beauty or honor. It is about survival, pure and unfiltered, carved from the bone and sinew of the fallen. Hyenas, vultures, jackals. A ragtag crew of opportunists who turn death into sustenance and chaos into currency. Yet beneath their rough exterior lies a surprising sophistication, a hierarchy as complex and cutthroat as any predator dynasty. The hyenas, with their mismatched coats and crooked grins, swagger like seasoned enforcers across the plains. Their laughter, that infamous cackle, carries across the hot air not as comedy, but as a chilling declaration of presence. It is a sound that echoes with mischief and menace in equal measure, a warning to all that the cleanup crew has arrived, and they are not here to ask politely. What many mistake for mere scavenging is in fact something far more ambitious. Spotted hyenas are powerful hunters in their own right, capable of felling wildebeest with brutal efficiency, but their true genius lies in their ability to muscle into the aftermath of others' labors. They are the consummate opportunists, reading the savannah like seasoned detectives, following vulture flight patterns and scent trails to locate fresh kills. And when they arrive, they do so in force. At the heart of this syndicate beats the ruthless politics of turf. Carcasses are not found, they are seized. A lion's hard-earned kill may barely have cooled before the hyena clan arrives, circling with growing boldness, their numbers swelling as if conjured by the stench of blood itself. Their tactics are brazen, bordering on audacious. A lone lioness, panting over her wildebeest prize, finds herself encircled by dozens of hyenas, their cackles rising in tempo, their eyes glinting with feverish hunger. The balance of power tilts not on strength alone, but on numbers, timing, and sheer audacity. In the Mara, muscle counts for much, but mob rule can topple even a king. Above this grim theater, the vultures wheel in slow, expectant spirals, their broad wings casting fleeting shadows over the scene below. To the untrained eye, their flight seems random, lazy even. But in truth, they are masters of the sky, reading thermal currents like seasoned pilots and scanning the earth for the telltale glimmer of fresh blood. Each vulture species has its role in this airborne hierarchy. The elegant white-backed vultures are the early responders, while the larger, more brutish lappet-faced vultures arrive later, breaking open the toughest hides and sinews with their monstrous beaks. And they do not merely follow the hyenas, they exploit them. When hyenas scatter a carcass in their frenzy, vultures descend like feathered pickpockets, snatching morsels amid the chaos. Amid this swirling melee, the jackals slip through the cracks like cunning street thieves, masters of stealth and opportunism. While hyenas and vultures clash in noisy displays of dominance, jackals navigate the fringes with fox-like cunning. Quick and agile, they dart in to seize forgotten scraps, or better yet, snatch chunks from the distracted combatants. They are the quiet specialists of the syndicate, the ones who thrive not through brute force, but by understanding the art of timing. They are also romantics of a strange sort, often seen in lifelong pairs, trotting side by side through the chaos, a reminder that even in this brutal guild, loyalty has its place. Yet what surprises most observers is not the ferocity of these scavengers, but their raw audacity to challenge the very apex of the food chain. It is not uncommon for lions, exhausted from their hunts, to be harassed into surrender by an overwhelming hyena clan. The great lion, monarch of the savannah, finds himself outflanked and outnumbered, the indignity compounded by the circling vultures that wait for his retreat. Here the scavengers become the aggressors, flipping the script in nature's theatre. They are not merely following death, they are architects of it. But this too is part of the Mara's brutal poetry. In this ecosystem, there is no such thing as waste. Every shred of muscle, every splinter of bone, every fragment of sinew is devoured, consumed by mouths both large and small. Hyenas crush bones with jaws strong enough to crack femurs. Vultures scour the remains until the skeleton gleams white beneath the sun, and beetles, unseen beneath the dust, carry away the final crumbs into their subterranean chambers. What begins as violence ends as cleansing, a macabre form of recycling that ensures the savannah remains alive with the next act of the cycle. And just when it seems the syndicate has feasted their fill, nature delivers a twist of dark comedy. Scavengers, it turns out, are also scavenged. Marabou storks, those ghoulish figures with their bald heads and dagger-like bills, often steal from the vultures, plunging into the brawl with grotesque elegance. Even the hyenas, swollen with gluttony, must remain vigilant, for lions may return to claim vengeance, or opportunistic leopards may pounce on distracted stragglers. In this world, no meal comes without risk, and even the cleanup crew must occasionally clean up after itself. As the day wanes and the sun tilts toward the horizon, the battlefield of the feast slowly empties. The hyenas, bellies distended and cackles softened to contented murmurs, trot away into the shadows. Vultures, heavy with stolen meals, launch themselves skyward with labored flaps, returning to their roosts to digest and wait for tomorrow's wind of death to call them again. The jackals, ever watchful, slink into the encroaching dusk, disappearing like whispers in the wind. But the Mara never truly sleeps. As darkness falls, another guild of predators awakens, eyes glittering in the growing gloom, ears pricking at the faint sounds of life and death, still echoing across the plains. The scavenger syndicate may rest for now, but the night has its own scavengers, its own ambushes, and a fresh cycle of brutality waiting just beyond the curtain of dusk. And as the stars begin to pierce the velvet sky, the savannah draws its breath once more, ready for the next act in its endless, savage play. As the sun melts into the western horizon, the Maasai Mara undergoes a transformation so complete, it feels like an entirely new kingdom is rising from the bones of the old. The golden blaze of day drains away, leaving behind a smoldering canvas of violet and charcoal, as if the sky itself has grown weary of its brilliance, and now seeks the cool comfort of dusk. The heat that once lay heavy over the land begins to loosen its grip, and in its place creeps a chill, subtle at first, like a thief testing the window, then insistent, sweeping low across the grasslands in whispering drafts. In this fragile in-between hour, when light and dark overlap like fading brushstrokes, the Mara's daytime monarchs retreat into slumber, and the true inheritors of the shadows emerge from their hiding places. The Mara by day is a kingdom of open warfare, its drama loud and visible beneath the ruthless clarity of the sun. But by night, the savannah becomes a game of whispers and ghosts, where survival depends not on speed or strength, but on silence, patience, and the fine art of ambush. The shadow assassins, leopards, hyenas, civets, and their nocturnal kin, are the undisputed rulers of this darker domain, sculpted by evolution to exploit every fold of the night's cover. Here, in this subdued world of silhouettes and secrets, they glide with eerie confidence, as if the earth itself were conspiring to conceal their footsteps. Among them, the leopard reigns as perhaps the most elegant of executioners. Dappled in rosettes that catch the moonlight like fragments of shattered glass, the leopard moves with a liquid grace so uncanny it almost appears to hover above the earth. Unlike lions, who revel in the brute spectacle of daylight hunts, leopards thrive in solitude, preferring the quiet brutality of nocturnal ambushes. Their spotted pelts, which during the day offer camouflage against the dappled light beneath trees, at night become near-perfect disguises among the broken shadows of the undergrowth. Not bound by pride or territory as rigidly as lions, leopards are free agents in the Mara's darkened game board, slipping across invisible borders with the stealth of silk sliding over stone. What sets these shadow assassins apart is their surgical precision. While lions may bring down prey with roaring bravado, a leopard's attack is a silent sonnet of violence. A twitch of the whiskers, a shift in the muscular coil of its spine, and then an eruption of motion so swift the victim barely registers its fate before the fatal bite severs life from limb. Gazelles, young warthogs, even unwary baboons become targets in this moonlit theater of precision, their final moments witnessed only by the flickering light of stars. Yet, as dominant as the leopard appears, it does not hunt alone in the night's arena. Beneath its silent ambush, a chorus of other assassins begins their own grim work. The civet, an overlooked phantom of the nocturnal world, slinks through the grasses with a scent-marking habit so enthusiastic it borders on comedic. Possessing the body of a cat and the masked face of a rogue bandit, the civet is a master of mixed menus. Insects, rodents, fruit, and even the occasional bird fall victim to its opportunistic appetite. If the leopard is the poet of the night, the civet is its practical joker, rummaging through the dark with an air of mischievous efficiency. Few imagine this small predator playing a vital role in the Mara's balance, yet the civet is a seed disperser, an insect controller, and a scavenger all in one. A reminder that in this ecosystem, even the smallest players carry profound influence. Looming larger in this midnight drama are the hyenas, now in their full nocturnal glory. By day, they are boisterous and brazen, but by night, they become something far more formidable. Silent shadows that materialize where least expected, their eyes catching moonlight in eerie twin glows. Unlike the solitary leopard or the solitary forager civet, hyenas operate in clans, and their night raids unfold with military precision. They are no longer scavengers picking over leftovers. Under cover of darkness, they are relentless hunters, testing herds of wildebeest with stealthy probes, launching coordinated attacks designed to fragment and isolate the weakest members. The Mara's nocturnal stage amplifies their cunning tenfold, as they exploit the reduced visibility and mounting fear of their prey, whose daytime vigilance falters under the strain of shadowy uncertainty. Curiously, the darkness is both a shield and a snare. Prey animals, deprived of the visual advantage they enjoy under sunlight, must rely on other senses to detect approaching killers. Ears swivel at every rustle, nostrils flare at each unfamiliar scent, and hearts race at the imagined thud of padded paws on brittle earth. But the predators have adapted too. Leopards soften their steps by placing their rear paw precisely where their front paw landed, muffling their approach. Hyenas time their charges to coincide with gusts of wind or the noisy panic of nearby animals, concealing their advance in a soundscape of chaos. Even the civet, whose belly may be less ambitious than its larger peers, moves with a fluid quietness, picking off frogs or rodents that venture one step too far from cover. As the night deepens, the Mara's atmosphere thickens with anticipation. Every shadow could be a predator, every gust of wind could mask a hunter's scent, and every distant snap of a twig sends ripples of dread across the plains. Yet within this tension lies an undeniable beauty. The Mara at night is a landscape sculpted not just by fear,
but by the remarkable adaptability of life itself. Creatures great and small have evolved to read the ink-black language of the dark, to survive in a world where sight fades, but instinct sharpens to a razor's edge. And then, without warning, the hush shatters. A wildebeest calf, separated from its mother in the swirling gloom, lets out a desperate bleat, its voice piercing the night like a flare. In the next breath, the shadows respond. A streak of muscle and rosettes erupts from the bush, a leopard closing the distance with terrifying speed, while across the field, hyenas raise their heads in unison, ears tilted toward the commotion. What began as a solitary tragedy quickly escalates into a contest of predators, each drawn by the irresistible invitation of vulnerability. The Mara never wastes an opportunity. As dawn begins to paint the eastern horizon in soft, blushing hues, the shadows of the assassins retreat, their work done for now. But their legacy lingers in the hush of survivors, in the wary glances of the herds, and in the uneasy knowledge that as the sun rises, the balance of power will tilt once more. Day will belong to the bold, but night will always whisper of those who rule unseen. And beneath the rising light, carcasses remain, soon to attract an entirely different order of creatures who feed not on the living, but on the echoes of the hunt. The Mara's scavenger mafia is stirring once again, ready to claim what the shadow assassins leave behind. Dawn spills across the Maasai Mara like molten amber, casting long shadows that reach for the farthest edges of the savannah. The chill of night still clings to the grass, beading each blade with dew that catches the first light and ignites it into fleeting diamonds. Birds stir from their slumber with hesitant chirps, a cautious overture to the drama that brews beneath the pastel sky. Yet beneath this gentle morning facade, tension coils invisibly tight, for the kings of the Mara are not at rest. Far from it. Today is not a tale of lion versus prey, but of lion versus lion. A brutal saga of power, betrayal, and the blood-soaked chess game of dynasties. Contrary to the romantic image of a lion as the undisputed sovereign of his realm, life within the Mara's prides is anything but stable. This is a world where thrones are claimed not by wisdom or age, but by fang and claw. The savannah is stitched together by rivalries older than the grass itself, and every male lion, whether newly maned or grizzled with years of conquest, lives with a blade perpetually at his throat, the constant threat of younger challengers prowling just beyond the horizon. These power struggles unfold not in the open fields of battle, but in the hidden corners of the Mara, in shadows cast by acacias and along the banks of muddy rivers where scents of rival males linger like taunts on the wind. The males of a coalition, often brothers or close kin, move through their territory like shadowed titans, their heavy paws pressing stories into the dust with each step. These are not idle wanderers, idle. Every patrol is a declaration of dominion. Every scent mark a warning shot across the invisible borders of lion politics. Their deep-throated roars roll across the plains like thunder, not merely to signal their presence to prey, but, more importantly, to remind rival males that this land is claimed. Yet in this brutal republic of muscle and will, a roar is both sword and shield, a show of power, but also a confession of vulnerability, for it invites the ambitious and the desperate to test the throne. When challengers rise, they do so with frightening speed. Young males, once exiled from their birth prides in the cruel rite of passage known as dispersal, roam as nomadic warriors, growing lean and hardened by exile. They form alliances with other outcasts, forging bonds of brotherhood born from mutual need. And when their bodies have filled out with strength and their confidence swells like the river after the rains, they seek their moment to strike. No invitation is necessary. Power in the Mara is seized, never gifted. The assault is swift and merciless. The defending males, perhaps dulled by seasons of easy dominance, are confronted with a terrifying certainty: fight with every ounce of fury or be erased from history. These battles are less choreographed duels and more savage explosions of violence, where fur and blood spiral into the air as bodies collide with bone-cracking force. Roars turn to guttural snarls, manes become spattered with crimson, and teeth flash in the rising sun like knives bared for conquest. Each slash and bite is not merely an attempt to injure, but to humiliate, to drive fear into the opponent's marrow. Yet what makes these conflicts truly chilling is what follows victory. For the new rulers of the Pride, conquest is incomplete without one final brutal ritual,
the erasure of their predecessors' bloodlines. Cub infanticide, grim as it sounds, is the dark logic of lion succession. Cubs under 2 years old, still too young to defend themselves, are systematically hunted within their own pride by the new male coalition. The act is as ruthless as it is strategic. By eliminating the offspring of their rivals, the conquerors both extinguish the old king's legacy and accelerate their own. With the cubs gone, the lionesses, bound by nature's ceaseless rhythm, will return to estrus far sooner, offering the new males an immediate opportunity to sire their own heirs and secure their genetic stake in the pride. It is a paradox cruel in design, yet brutally effective. What seems like a heartless massacre is in fact the ruthless engine of survival. Nature, ever indifferent to sentiment, favors the victors who propagate their bloodlines swiftly, ensuring that only the fiercest and most determined rulers shape the future of the Mara. But the lionesses, far from passive spectators to these bloody coups, have strategies of their own. They are the quiet custodians of the pride, seasoned survivors of these turbulent tides of power. Some lionesses resist, defending their cubs with desperate valor, their claws slashing at the invaders with maternal fury. Others employ more subtle tactics, engaging in what can only be described as political cunning, covertly mating with rival males even before a takeover is complete, sowing paternity confusion that can spare their offspring from execution. After all, if a new male cannot be certain which cubs carry his blood, he is less likely to risk ending his own lineage by mistake. Such clever deceptions offer a fleeting reprieve, yet nothing guarantees safety in this volatile game. Even once installed on their newfound thrones, the new kings face the ticking clock of inevitable rebellion. Time, as it always does, turns loyal subjects into restless contenders. The very cubs spared by cunning lionesses will, in mere seasons, grow into rivals who will rise against their own fathers. Power in the Mara is never permanent. It is a fleeting crown made of thorns, passed from victor to victor in an endless cycle of ambition and downfall. As the sun climbs higher and the chill of morning dissipates into the furnace of midday, the victors of the latest battle stand bloodied but unbowed. Their heaving flanks shimmer with sweat, their eyes still sharp with the fire of conquest. Around them, the pride reassembles, the lionesses watching with guarded acceptance, the cubs, the few that remain, peering at their new kings with wary curiosity. For now, the balance has shifted, and a new chapter of the pride's legacy begins, carved into the history of the Mara by tooth and claw. But beyond the horizon, shadows are already gathering. Nomadic males, driven by the same hunger for power, trace the scent of upheaval on the wind. They know the cycle well, and they wait for their moment. The bloodline wars are never over. They merely pause between storms. And as the lions of the Mara savor their fragile dominion beneath the unyielding sun, they remain blissfully unaware that their greatest rivals may already be watching, patient, calculating, biding their time until the throne is vulnerable once again. In the vast, sunlit stage of the Maasai Mara, where herds thunder and lions roar, it is easy to be seduced by the grand spectacle of life and death played out in broad daylight. Yet, as the eye follows the obvious drama, an entire realm of predators operates in near total invisibility. No fanfare accompanies their hunts, no victory roars pierce the air. They are the quiet inheritors of an ancient craft, the masters of stillness and stealth. These are the Mara's silent assassins, snakes, ambush reptiles, and stealth killers that wage their own unseen war in the margins of the great savannah opera. Beneath the shimmering grasses, where the sun's heat transforms the earth into a brittle crust, a quiet lethality coils in the shadows. The puff adder, a snake so patient it seems carved from stone, lies buried beneath a thin veil of dust. Its camouflage is a masterpiece of natural design, blending seamlessly with the mosaic of soil and dried vegetation. Here it waits, motionless for hours, even days, until fate delivers an unwitting victim to its doorstep. There is no chase, no pursuit, no adrenaline-fueled dash for the kill. The puff adder's strategy is pure patience, and patience in this case is a weapon deadlier than speed. When the moment arrives, it is over almost before it begins. A sudden blur, a flicker of movement so brief it barely registers in the eye, and the adder's fangs sink deep into flesh, delivering a dose of cytotoxic venom that works like acid in the bloodstream. Tissue collapses, blood flow chokes, and the prey's fate is sealed in silence. Few hunters in the Mara can claim such lethal efficiency with so little effort. And in a dark twist of nature's humor, the puff adder is also responsible for more snakebite fatalities in Africa than any other serpent. Not because it seeks out conflict, but because its brilliance at staying hidden often fools even the cautious. Step too close, and this assassin reminds all that in the Mara, the ground beneath your feet is anything but safe. Deeper into the thickets, where the dappled sunlight falls like scattered gold coins, another shadow lurks, the African rock python. If the puff adder is the silent sniper of the savannah, then the python is its constricting executioner. Coiled among tangled roots or draped like an ancient relic over low branches, the python is a hunter sculpted by patience and raw muscle. There is no venom in its arsenal, no chemical warfare to subdue its quarry. Instead, it relies on an ambush so violent and final that it leaves no room for escape. As its prey wanders too close, perhaps a guinea fowl pecking carelessly at insects, the python uncoils with terrifying speed, looping its immense body around its victim in a tightening embrace. Every exhale from the prey is met with relentless pressure until breath ceases altogether and life slips quietly into the still air. The python's dining habits carry a paradoxical grandeur. Capable of swallowing animals many times its own girth, it consumes its prey whole, disappearing into the brush with a grotesquely swollen silhouette that will sustain it for weeks, even months. In a land defined by feast and famine, this strategy is nothing short of genius. While lions must hunt every few days to fuel their constant activity, the python feasts rarely but profoundly, a reminder that in nature, victory sometimes belongs not to the swiftest, but to the most efficient. Yet the Mara's stealth killers are not confined to the earth alone. Skimming the surface of muddy waterholes and sun-baked lagoons is the Nile monitor lizard, a reptilian marauder that blends the tenacity of a crocodile with the cunning of a mongoose. Sleek and muscular, its forked tongue flickers incessantly, tasting the air for the scent of opportunity. Though it may lack the bone-crushing power of its crocodilian cousins, the Nile monitor compensates with versatility. Its diet is a smorgasbord of possibility: fish, eggs, fledgling birds, carrion, and even other reptiles. Nothing is off the table. With claws that rake through sand like miniature plows and a tail that whips with whip-crack force, the monitor is both predator and scavenger, pirate and opportunist. It raids nests with unapologetic ferocity, devouring unguarded eggs and nestlings while harried parents shriek in futile protest. And yet its role is vital. In its gluttonous rampages, the monitor lizard inadvertently prunes populations, ensuring no one species claims dominance over the rest. Chaos, it seems, can be a gardener of balance. What is perhaps most astonishing about these silent assassins is the invisible thread they weave through the ecosystem. They are not merely isolated killers picking off the occasional victim, they are engineers of equilibrium. The snakes keep rodent populations in check, curbing the spread of disease and preventing agricultural destruction for the Maasai herders who share this land. The python's gluttonous meals thin out the reckless and unwary, ensuring that only the most alert animals survive to pass on their genes. And the monitor lizard, the shameless raider, regulates bird colonies and thins out weaker nests, maintaining diversity among avian populations. Even their venom, that most feared of weapons, serves a greater purpose than mere lethality. When predators die from envenomation, their carcasses feed an entire community of scavengers, from hyenas to beetles. In a landscape where every calorie matters, even death becomes a feast, and the venomous strike of a puff adder ripples outward in life-giving waves across the Mara's food web. As the sun arcs westward and shadows lengthen once more across the savannah, the silent assassins retreat to their sanctuaries beneath rock and root, their bellies full, their presence barely noted by the larger drama unfolding above. They leave behind no triumphant cries, no visible trails of conquest. Yet their influence is etched deeply into the fabric of this ecosystem, an invisible hand steering the fate of the Mara with every patient ambush and lethal strike. But as dusk descends and the cool breath of night creeps in, a new set of killers prepares to rise. The skies themselves will soon darken not just with shadow, but with wings. Raptors and river hunters are poised to take center stage, casting their deadly silhouettes over the floodplains and streams. In the Mara, the silence of assassins gives way to the fury of aerial hunters, and once again, the rhythm of predator and prey begins its unending dance beneath the blood-orange sky. Above the golden sprawl of the Maasai Mara, the sky is never empty. Even when it appears tranquil, brushed with the lazy strokes of high clouds, drifting like woolen sails on an endless blue sea, it is alive with invisible currents of purpose. Thermals spiral unseen, carrying with them a kingdom far removed from the dust-choked savannah below. Here, in the boundless arena above the plains, power belongs not to clawed paws or venomous fangs, but to talons sharpened like daggers and eyes honed to perfection by millennia of ruthless refinement. The Mara is not just a battlefield of earth and bone, it is also a war zone of wings, where raptors rule with a cold, imperial elegance, raining death from the heavens. At first light, the sky begins to stir. The rising sun strikes the wings of the African fish eagle, turning its snowy feathers into gilded pennants that shimmer against the backdrop of morning haze. It cries out, a piercing, unmistakable call that echoes off the riverbanks and sets the tone for the aerial drama to come. This eagle is no passive observer. It is a consummate strategist, scanning the rippling surfaces of the Mara River with a focus so intense it seems to bore into the water itself. Every scale that flashes beneath the surface, every ripple out of rhythm, is scrutinized for weakness. When the moment arrives, the eagle folds its wings and plunges earthward in a dive so precise it slices through reflection and foam with surgical exactness. Its talons, curved like sickles of the sky, seize the fish in a burst of spray, lifting the prize aloft in a defiant display of aerial mastery. Yet the river is merely one front in the war raging above. Out on the plains, the martial eagles patrol the thermals with a vigilance that borders on obsession. Massive and muscular, these formidable predators carry a presence so commanding that even adult monkeys glance nervously skyward. A single sweep of their wings is a sentence of death. And with talons powerful enough to crush the spine of a small antelope, they are not bound by the modesty of featherweight prey. The martial eagle hunts with audacity, snatching guinea fowl from the grass, jackals from the brush, and sometimes, in moments that border on arrogance, attempts to lift off with mammals almost too heavy to carry, relying on raw muscle and sheer determination to defy gravity. There is a strange beauty in the way they hunt, an artistry of motion that turns violence into grace. Unlike the clumsy chaos of many ground pursuits, aerial assassinations unfold with mathematical precision. Calculations of distance, wind resistance, prey trajectory, all solved in split seconds within the predator's mind. A single miscalculation would mean wasted energy and missed opportunity. Yet these skylords rarely falter. Their eyes, capable of spotting a rabbit from over 3 kilometers away, weave through the tapestry of the land, unmasking camouflage and decoding movement as effortlessly as if they had written the script themselves. But in this high-altitude kingdom, even mastery comes at a price. Success attracts envy, and the sky has its own breed of thieves. Enter the vultures, the airborne opportunists, the pirates of the Mara's atmosphere. Though mocked for their hunched frames and bald vulture eyes that seem forever hungry, these scavengers are anything but bumbling leftovers. They are tacticians of the wind, capable of reading the air in ways few creatures can comprehend. While they may not kill with their own talons, they kill with their timing, descending upon fresh kills with the precision of fighter jets scrambling into battle. Their eyesight is absurdly sharp, capable of spotting a carcass from kilometers away, and when they descend, they do so in droves. One vulture spiraling lazily overhead becomes 2, then 10, then a swirling maelstrom of feathers blotting out the sun. It is a visual cue no predator below can ignore, a flashing neon sign proclaiming feast in progress. Yet the vultures care little for the opinions of lions or hyenas. They are here to claim their share, and in doing so, they turn the sky into a scene of orchestrated chaos. What follows is less a meal and more a full-scale invasion. Vultures plunge from the heavens with an alarming lack of grace, crashing into the carcass with such force that scraps of flesh are flung skyward like grisly confetti. They shove and squabble with comedic urgency, bald heads darting and stabbing in a frenzied ballet of desperation. But beneath the absurdity lies ruthless efficiency. In mere minutes, dozens of vultures can strip a carcass clean to the bone, their hooked beaks and acid-rich stomachs processing matter that would sicken most other creatures. Rotting sinew and putrid flesh, gourmet delicacies for these feathered recyclers. Even lions, the so-called monarchs of the savannah, are not immune to the thievery of the sky. A pride that slaved over a hard-earned kill may find themselves besieged by vultures emboldened by numbers, darting in to snatch morsels while the big cats fume in impotent frustration. The irony is delicious. Apex predators, masters of muscle and fang, humbled by creatures that cannot hunt, yet dominate through sheer audacity and aerial advantage. In the Mara, the crown is heavy, and the vultures know precisely how to lighten the load. And yet, beneath this drama of theft and gluttony, lies a surprising truth. Vultures, for all their scavenging antics, are indispensable custodians of the ecosystem. Their stomachs, fortified against lethal bacteria, cleanse the savannah of disease-ridden remains, halting the spread of anthrax and botulism before it festers. Without them, the Mara would choke on its own decay. These feathered pariahs are, in fact, unsung heroes, airborne janitors maintaining the health of the land with every greedy gulp. As the day matures and thermals grow lazy under the weight of afternoon heat, the raptors retreat to their perches, bellies full, feathers preened by the sun. The sky, momentarily quiet, feels almost too serene, as though the war zone has been temporarily abandoned. But even in this fleeting calm, the threat remains. The Mara's aerial assassins are patient, for they know opportunity never slumbers for long. Somewhere below, shadows lengthen, herds begin to move, and life, as always, inches closer to its inevitable end. And as the vultures spiral higher, casting one last glance at the earthbound chaos, they are not the only ones watching from above. Far on the horizon, a darker form lingers on the currents, a sentinel of the riverways, eyes glinting coldly as it surveys its dominion. The Nile crocodiles are awakening, ancient monsters of muscle and patience, ready to turn the Mara's rivers into ambush alleys of death. As day slides toward dusk, the battle shifts once again from sky to water, and the next act in the Mara's endless war is about to unfold. The Mara River does not whisper. It groans, it churns, it breathes with the ancient pulse of something far older than the plains it cleaves in two. While the sun sets fire to the sky, smearing it with streaks of amber and crimson, the river remains cold beneath its surface, moving with a slow, ominous determination. Its muddy waters, thick as stew, slide between banks that seem to lean inwards, as though the earth itself is conspiring to funnel life toward this liquid gauntlet. From above, it might look like a simple ribbon of water winding through the savannah, but beneath the surface, it hides teeth. 1,000 teeth, waiting in the gloom. This is no gentle stream. This is the Mara's executioner. The wildebeest know this river well, or perhaps more truthfully, they fear it in the way all creatures fear the inevitability of danger cloaked in necessity. For the Great Migration, that epic pilgrimage of life and death, the Mara River stands not as an option, but as an obligation. They must cross it, drawn by the promise of greener pastures and swollen grasslands on the far side. Hunger pushes them toward the banks, while the river itself, silent and knowing, waits for their courage to falter into recklessness. And yet, the wildebeest do not approach alone. Alongside them gather zebras and gazelles, together forming a chaotic orchestra of nervous anticipation. The air crackles with tension, sharp as a thunderhead, as hooves shuffle dust into the wind and eyes dart toward the dark waters. Some drink, dipping their muzzles hesitantly, flinching at their own reflections distorted by ripples. Beneath their feet, predators lie in ambush, invisible and patient, masters of the silent ambush, the crocodiles of the Mara. A crocodile does not chase. It does not sprint across open land in pursuit of prey. No, its art is far older, far wiser. It waits, days, even weeks if necessary, with eyes barely breaking the surface and nostrils poised just above the waterline like twin periscopes. The crocodile reads the vibrations of hooves long before it sees them, senses the collective heartbeat of thousands of animals pulsing through the earth and water. Its mind, primitive but perfect for this singular purpose, calculates patience as the ultimate weapon. And then the moment arrives, sudden as a thunderclap on a clear day. The first wildebeest lunges into the river, driven by the unbearable tension of waiting too long at the brink. Others follow in an avalanche of splashing bodies, the surface of the river exploding into chaos. Water churns into frothy turmoil as panicked herds collide, shove, and scramble over one another, each desperate to reach the safety of the opposite bank. Dust from the rear of the herd swirls into the air, turning the scene into a fevered, muddy storm. But beneath the surface, the crocodiles are already moving. Their strike is an eruption of coiled energy, astonishing in its speed after such deceptive stillness. A dark shape launches upward, jaws yawning wide to reveal rows of interlocking daggers. When those jaws slam shut, the sound is more felt than heard, a bone-crushing thunderclap muffled by the river's roar. A young zebra, its striped flanks slick with terror, disappears in an instant, pulled below the surface as though swallowed by the river itself. This is no mindless feeding frenzy. The crocodiles, ancient architects of ambush, are strategic in their assaults. They target the weak, the injured, the calves struggling against the relentless current. They position themselves at choke points, where the desperate swim of the crossing animals slows into a frantic, flailing struggle. There, the crocodiles harvest life with brutal precision, their armored bodies twisting in death rolls designed not merely to kill, but to dismantle their prey into manageable portions. Yet even amid the carnage, survival finds its unlikely heroes. Wildebeest calves, swept downstream by the furious current, are sometimes seen paddling with astonishing determination, eyes wide with instinctual fear, yet hearts refusing surrender. There are tales of mothers doubling back into the swirling water to push their young towards shore, braving the snapping jaws for the fragile hope of family survival. In a landscape where mercy is rare, these small defiant acts flicker like fragile flames against the darkness. Ironically, it is not always the crocodiles that claim the most victims. In their terror, many animals drown under the weight of their own herds, trampled by panicked companions or dragged beneath by the press of bodies too tightly packed. The river does not discriminate. It devours the brave and the cautious alike, the strong and the weak, folding them all into its murky depths with equal indifference. And as quickly as it began, the crossing ends. Survivors scramble onto the far bank, trembling, dripping, their flanks streaked with mud and sweat. Behind them, the Mara River settles once more into deceptive calm, its surface smoothing as though nothing had transpired. Scattered across the current, carcasses drift like grim trophies, claimed not just by crocodiles, but by a host of scavengers waiting downstream. Vultures wheel overhead, eyes sharp for floating banquets, while marabou storks pace the shallows with patient hunger. The kill in this merciless ecosystem extends its influence far beyond the first predator's bite. Yet, for all its brutality, the Mara River is not simply a slaughterhouse. It is also a life-giver, its dangerous depths sustaining the very herds it threatens. Without its winding arteries, the grasses of the Mara would wither, and the great migrations would falter. The crocodiles themselves, formidable as they are, play an essential role in maintaining the balance, culling the weak and keeping populations in check. Even death here feeds the continuation of life, a paradox both cruel and beautiful. As the sun dips below the horizon, casting the river in molten shades of gold and crimson, the crocodiles return to their patient vigil. They rest, sated for now, their ancient eyes half-lidded beneath the water's glassy surface. But they do not sleep. They wait. The river will call again, as it always does, and the herds will answer, compelled by forces older than memory. And far beyond the riverbanks, as twilight deepens into velvet night, another shadow stirs in the Mara. It is not crocodile or lion, nor vulture or hawk. It is the quiet builder of empires, the uncelebrated titan of the land, the termite. Beneath the soil, in labyrinths unseen, they prepare for their nocturnal rise, ready to shape the destiny of predators and prey alike. For in the Mara, even the smallest architects carry the power to move giants. As dawn slowly smudges the shadows from the landscape, casting the Mara in a soft, honeyed light, it's easy to let the eye drift toward the herds, thundering across the open plains, or the predators draped like royalty beneath scattered acacias. But linger longer, and your gaze may be drawn to something far less obvious, yet far more enduring. The earth itself rising into strange, sculpted spires. Across the grasslands, hundreds of these earthen monoliths punctuate the horizon, like the ancient ruins of a forgotten civilization. They stand weathered but defiant, their silhouettes casting long shadows that stretch like sundials across the dust. These are the fortresses of the Mara's most industrious architects, the termites. To the untrained eye, they might seem like mere mounds of mud, inert and silent, as though nature left them behind in a moment of idle creativity. But these citadels are anything but lifeless. Beneath their sun-baked surfaces hum vast subterranean empires, bustling, sweating cities powered by millions of tireless workers, moving through shadowed tunnels and hidden chambers. If you could peel back the crust of these towers, you'd find a labyrinth so complex it rivals the busiest human metropolis, complete with ventilation shafts, nurseries, fungal farms, and corridors thrumming with purposeful activity. Termites are not just builders of mounds, they are sculptors of the land itself. With jaws tiny yet relentless, they harvest dead plant matter, dry grasses, fallen twigs, leaf litter, and ferry it deep into their fortresses. Here they cultivate fungal gardens, a marvel of agriculture long before humans dreamt of such innovation. The fungus breaks down the cellulose that termites alone cannot digest, transforming useless debris into nutrient-rich sustenance. In this way, the termites feed not just themselves, but also the entire Mara. Their relentless recycling fertilizes the soil, breathes life into the grasslands, and nourishes the very plants upon which the great herds depend. Yet for all their agricultural brilliance, termite mounds serve another, grimmer purpose in the Mara's grand design. They are the unexpected stages of survival and slaughter. These earthen towers, with their cool interiors and elevated vantage points, are coveted real estate in a land where the difference between life and death often comes down to position. For smaller predators, they are ambush platforms par excellence. Perched atop a mound, a slender monitor lizard or a stealthy serval can survey the grassland, their eyes scanning for the slightest tremor of movement. From this natural high ground, they strike with ruthless efficiency, pouncing upon rodents and insects with an accuracy sharpened by height and hunger. But the mounds are not merely platforms for hunters. They are also bastions for the hunted. In the sweltering heat of midday, when the sun transforms the plains into a shimmering furnace, animals seek refuge in the shade these structures cast. Mongoose clans, with their twitching noses and perpetually startled expressions, use abandoned termite fortresses as both sanctuary and stronghold. From these vantage points, they mount fierce defenses against marauding snakes and raptors, their alarm calls piercing the air like frantic sirens. Warthogs, too, take up residence in the cooled chambers of old termite cities, reversing into burrows with comically determined scuttles, tusks facing out as a last line of defense against curious predators. In a twist of irony that nature seems to savor, predators and prey sometimes share these same strongholds, though not always at the same time, and never without tension. After all, a burrowed warthog is a tempting target for a hungry python, and mongoose dens are regularly raided by crafty jackals probing for an easy meal. Such moments reveal the termite mound for what it truly is. Not merely a home, but a contested battleground, a place where strategies collide and survival hangs on the smallest miscalculation. Even the mounds themselves play an active role in the Mara's deadly theater. During the rainy season, when the plains swell with life and the air thickens with the scent of wet earth, the mounds become slick and treacherous. Animals scrambling for escape during predator chases sometimes slip upon their muddy slopes, falling into the waiting jaws of lions or hyenas. In other seasons, the hardened surfaces of the mound serve as perches for birds of prey, who scan the grasslands for rustling hints of life below. The very architecture of the termite mound, forged by creatures barely visible to the naked eye, becomes an instrument of fate for animals far larger and louder. And then, in one of the Mara's most spectacular transformations, the mounds themselves seem to come alive. With the arrival of warm rains, millions of winged termites called alates erupt from the fortress in synchronized swarms. They rise into the dusk like fragments of a living cloud, their papery wings catching the light as they dance skyward. For these fleeting moments, they abandon the safety of their underground citadels in pursuit of a singular goal: to mate, disperse, and forge new empires. But freedom carries a price. The air soon fills with hungry mouths. Birds, bats, and even opportunistic predators on the ground snap up the airborne feast with unrestrained gluttony. It is a festival of predation, a feeding frenzy unlike any other, where the builders of the land themselves become its buffet. And yet, some will survive. A fortunate few will drift beyond the reach of their hunters, touch down upon virgin soil, and burrow beneath the surface to begin the cycle anew. Thus, the termite is both architect and architected, predator and prey, provider and provision. Their mounds anchor the Mara's ecosystem in ways both visible and hidden, their labor sustaining the great migrations, their fortresses shaping the strategies of predator and prey alike. In a realm often defined by tooth and claw, it is the unseen laborers beneath the soil who quietly sculpt the destiny of the land. As dusk deepens into night, the air cools once more, and the swarms retreat or perish. The Mara exhales momentarily at rest. But there is no true stillness here. Far beyond the termite citadels, in the hush between twilight and darkness, a new set of shadows gathers. In the realm of survival, alliances are forged in silence, enemies become unexpected partners, and the Mara prepares for yet another twist in its endless saga of life and death. The hour of forbidden alliances is about to begin. The Mara does not play by simple rules. It is a land that thrives in contradictions, a living paradox where violence births life and death paves the way for rebirth. For all the ferocity that unfolds daily beneath its sun-baked skies, this place knows strange moments of uneasy peace, flickering truces that dance between predator and prey like desert mirages. It is here, among the dust and blood, that nature allows itself a brief but fascinating indulgence, partnerships between the unlikeliest of companions, fleeting alliances that rewrite the brutal script of survival. For in the Mara, even sworn enemies know there are days when survival demands compromise. As dawn rises soft and hazy over the grasslands, herds of Cape buffalo begin their slow, deliberate march across the dew-laced savannah. Massive, hulking creatures with eyes that seem carved from obsidian and horns coiled like ancient weaponry. The buffalo wear their power openly, like armored knights trudging across an open battlefield. And yet upon their broad, dust-caked backs perch much smaller, far less intimidating passengers, the oxpeckers. These little birds, no bigger than a man's hand, bob and flit along the buffalo's spine with the casual air of seasoned commuters. At first glance, it appears a mismatch of comical proportions, the mighty and the minuscule, predator-sized prey tolerating feathered freeloader. But scratch beneath the surface, and the genius of this alliance reveals itself. The oxpeckers are no idle hitchhikers. They are relentless workers, pecking and probing at the buffalo's thick hide to feast upon ticks, dead skin, and parasitic intruders that burrow into the folds of muscle and scarred flesh. What might seem like a simple grooming service is, in truth, a life-saving operation. Left unchecked, the parasites can weaken even the toughest buffalo, draining their strength drop by drop. And so, the buffalo tolerates the oxpecker's sharp beak, even its occasional overzealous probing into open wounds, because the alternative is far worse. Yet this arrangement carries an amusing twist of duplicity. The oxpecker, ever the opportunist, is not entirely altruistic. While it dutifully removes ticks and pests, it has been known to keep wounds open longer than necessary, feasting on blood in addition to its usual diet. The buffalo, for its part, seems to accept this minor betrayal as the price of partnership, a tolerable inconvenience in exchange for greater health. Such is the Mara's way. Even its alliances are shaded in grey. But not all alliances here are so tidy. Some are forged in desperation, rising from the fires of necessity rather than mutual benefit. Take, for example, the wary, tension-filled truces between hyenas and lions. In most circumstances, these two apex competitors treat one another with unvarnished hostility, clashing in brutal skirmishes over territory, carcasses, and dominance. Yet, under certain rare and extraordinary conditions, necessity overrides hatred, and these rivals find themselves momentary comrades. Imagine a massive buffalo carcass left behind by an accident of migration, too large for a single predator to consume or defend alone. In such moments, the usual lines of enmity blur. Hyenas approach cautiously, their shoulders hunched and ears flattened in deference, circling the feast with wary optimism. Lions, their bellies already swollen from earlier gorging, tolerate their rivals' advance with a blend of exhaustion and reluctant acceptance. For a brief window, truce prevails. The hyenas snap and squabble among themselves, but refrain from outright provocation, while lions, too heavy with meat to defend every scrap, allow the scavengers their portion. This uneasy coexistence is not born of affection, but of pragmatic calculus. The cost of defending the carcass from a large hyena clan may outweigh the benefit, especially when the lions are already satiated. Likewise, the hyenas know that pressing too hard could awaken the lion's ire. So, they tiptoe along this razor's edge of tolerance, seizing mouthfuls when they can, retreating when necessary, and living another day for the next opportunity. It is survival choreography at its finest, improvised yet strangely elegant. Elsewhere, the Mara offers subtler, quieter examples of such truces, some so fleeting they vanish almost as soon as they form. During the Great Migrations, herds of wildebeest and zebra often band together not out of friendship, but shared fear. Wildebeest possess a powerful sense of smell, able to detect predators hidden in the tall grasses, while zebras boast sharper eyesight, their vision tuned to spot movement from great distances. Together, they create a composite organism, a living alarm system, where the weaknesses of one species are balanced by the strengths of the other. They move as one, thunder across rivers as one, and face down the gauntlet of predators as a unified front, knowing that divided they fall, but united they might just endure. And yet even in these pragmatic pacts, betrayal lurks. In moments of panic at river crossings, zebra hooves may trample smaller wildebeest calves, while wildebeest, in their frenzied surge, may block zebra from safer routes. Self-preservation always simmers beneath the surface of cooperation, and the Mara never allows its players to forget this uncomfortable truth. Here, every alliance is a game of borrowed time. What fascinates most about these partnerships is how they ripple across the ecosystem, affecting players far beyond the immediate participants. Oxpeckers grooming buffalo reduce parasite loads that could otherwise spread to other grazers. Hyena-lion truces at shared kills leave scraps for jackals and vultures. Even the combined herds of zebra and wildebeest create temporary havens for smaller animals, who find fleeting shelter amid the stampeding mass. In the Mara, no alliance exists in isolation. Each is a thread woven into the vast living tapestry of survival. As the day draws toward its close and the sky begins to soften into dusky lavender, these fragile alliances dissolve back into the familiar rhythm of competition. The buffalo flick their tails, scattering the oxpeckers into the cooling air. Lions grow restless, rising from their slumber to chase away encroaching hyenas. The herds scatter once more into their species-specific clusters, their temporary unity dissolved like mist beneath the returning sun. Yet the memory of cooperation lingers in the dust, a quiet reminder that even in a realm defined by conflict, moments of partnership are possible. And beyond the settling plains, as night drapes the Mara in velvet shadow, a final, treacherous gamble awaits. The season is changing, the land growing harsher. Storms brew on distant horizons, and survival itself becomes the most dangerous game of all. For those who have navigated the complexities of alliance and rivalry, a new question arises. When the odds turn against every creature on the plains, who dares to gamble everything in the final, desperate play for life? The Mara's ultimate gamble is about to begin. The sun hangs low over the Maasai Mara, its swollen disk smoldering behind a veil of dust, as if reluctant to surrender to nightfall. Yet it knows, as every creature beneath it knows, that time here is not measured by clocks or calendars, but by seasons. Vast, uncontrollable forces that sweep across the land like ancient gods, indifferent to the lives caught in their relentless tides. One moment, the Mara lies emerald and brimming, a paradise fed by generous rains. The next, it withers beneath a merciless sun, parched and brittle, each blade of grass crisped by thirst. There is no middle ground in this place. The Mara offers feast or famine, flood or drought, with nothing in between. And in this stark duality, life itself becomes the ultimate gambler, betting everything on the uncertain hand of survival. When the rains arrive, they do so with theatrical excess, as though the heavens themselves have burst their banks. Dark clouds roll across the sky like herds of colossal beasts, their underbellies heavy with promise and peril. Thunder grumbles low in the distance, a slow-building growl that seems to emerge from the bones of the earth. Lightning spears the horizon, illuminating the plains in flickering spectral flashes, and then without warning the skies split open, unleashing torrents of rain that hammer the ground with wild abandon. The parched earth drinks greedily, cracks vanishing beneath sheets of water that rush into the waiting rivers, swelling them into roaring arteries of life. In this transformed world, the Mara becomes a wonderland of abundance. Grasses surge skyward, so lush and thick they swallow the legs of grazing herds. Wildebeest calves, born in synchronized waves timed to the rains, wobble unsteadily on spindly legs, blinking at the sudden bounty that surrounds them. Predators follow this bloom of life like shadows, their coats sleek and glossy from the feast of opportunity. Lions lounge in the shade of rain-fed thickets, their bellies heavy with success. Cheetahs, their amber eyes alight with hunger and thrill, burst across open spaces where impala, fattened by the flush of growth, offer no shortage of targets. Yet even in this moment of excess, the Mara whispers a warning. Abundance is a loan, not a gift. and soon enough the debt comes due. As the rains taper, the grass begins to yellow at the edges, a slow creeping desiccation that carries the ominous inevitability of dusk at the end of day. Waterholes shrink into cracked depressions, their muddy rims etched with the desperate prints of animals drawn to the last sips of moisture. The wind changes too, shifting from cool and fragrant to hot and hollow, carrying the acrid scent of dust and distant fires sparked by dry lightning strikes. The rivers, once swollen with the pulse of life, recede into sluggish trickles, marooning crocodiles in muddy trenches where they wait with sour patience for the rains to return. Now the true trial begins. In the withering heat, the very landscape becomes the apex predator, stripping away cover, evaporating water, and testing the endurance of every creature that calls the Mara home. Wildebeest must march farther for grazing, their once plentiful green banquet reduced to brittle stubble. Elephants, those wise architects of the wilderness, dig with their tusks into the dry riverbeds, unearthing hidden springs in an act of ancient memory that offers salvation to many. Birds wheel high overhead, their cries sharp against the flat silence, while scavengers pick over sun-bleached bones that lie scattered like forgotten relics of battles past. Even the kings of the savannah, the lions, feel the pinch of scarcity. Their hunts stretch into longer pursuits, their prey leaner, faster, driven by the same gnawing hunger that grips the hunters themselves. They grow thinner, their ribs beginning to press against their tawny coats like the bars of a shrinking cage. Cheetahs, built for speed but not stamina, falter in the baking heat, their chases shorter, their victories rarer. For them and for many, the Mara in drought is not a home, but an unforgiving crucible, a gauntlet from which not all will emerge. Yet, amid the hardship, life refuses to yield entirely. There is a stubborn tenacity woven into the very fabric of the Mara, a defiance that beats beneath the dust and decay. Seeds, buried deep within the hardened earth, lie dormant but unbroken, waiting for the kiss of rain to awaken them. In the twilight hours, when the air cools just enough to allow breath without burning, nocturnal creatures stir from their refuges, civets, porcupines, and aardvarks, their furtive foraging a quiet testament to resilience. Even the termite colonies, those underground dynasties, press on with tireless devotion, recycling the dead to nourish the living, refusing to let the ecosystem collapse under the weight of its own hunger. And then, when hope seems most fragile, the skies deliver their salvation once more. The rains return not as a gentle drizzle, but as a roaring applause from the heavens, hammering the dust back into mud, reviving rivers that had become mere memories. The first drops fall upon sun-cracked earth with an almost musical patter, soon crescendoing into a symphony of life reborn. The Mara drinks deeply, greedily, and in response the plains ignite with color and motion. Grass shoots up overnight as if propelled by invisible springs. Insects erupt in a frenzy of emergence, and herds that had scattered thinly across the horizon converge once again, drawn by the scent of revival. What follows is not merely recovery, but renaissance. Newborns stumble beside their mothers through the emerald tide. Predators find their strength restored, and the great cycles of migration resume as if they had never paused. The landscape itself seems to breathe a collective sigh, momentarily sated, though always wary of the inevitable turn of the wheel. For in the Mara, feast and famine are not opposites but partners in an eternal dance, each giving meaning to the other. As the sun sets on this chapter of survival, casting long golden spears across the rain-slicked plains, the Mara stands once more at the threshold of its next transformation. Clouds still linger on the horizon, heavy with possibility, while shadows deepen beneath the returning canopy of grass. The predators sharpen their claws in the soft mud, the herds lift their muzzles to the scented wind, and deep beneath the surface, life pulses with quiet, unstoppable momentum. In this kingdom of endless gambles, where every creature wagers its future on forces beyond its control, there is no final victory, no permanent defeat. Only the ongoing, unbroken rhythm of survival, raw, beautiful, unforgiving, and magnificent. And as the curtain falls over the Mara's brutal yet breathtaking saga, one truth remains unshakable. Tomorrow, it all begins again.